As I understand it, Paychex actually pays something like 1 out of every 12 Americans in the private sector. So give us a sense of where the smaller businesses are in their employment.
Sure. Right now, we're seeing in our Paychex Employment Watch for the month of March, we still see moderate job growth for small businesses. This is under 50 employees. It has decelerated a bit month over month for the last few months. So we're down about 1% from last year. But we do think that when you see unemployment rate at 4.1% for the last 5 months, it definitely is more on the supply side. It's tough for small businesses to find qualified workers and hire them on.
Well, if that's right, Marty, are you seeing it show up in higher wages? Because normally, if you have a shortage of supply, that drives up the price.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Last July, we peaked at just under 3% annual hourly earnings increase, and now we're back down to about 2.7%, about 2.66%. And so we haven't seen that as much. So it's very interesting to kind of see that part of it. Now, if you take the 1 month and annualize it, March over February, we did see something more like 2.94%. So I do think you'll start to see those wages go up over the next few months.
So, Marty, just so you know, we're showing our viewers right now another chart that you gave us, which shows hourly earnings as a white line starting to trail off, weekly earnings coming down. And interestingly, weekly hours actually went down. They've come back up a bit now, but they're at a fairly modest level.
Alan?
Well, Marty, one thing I've been worried about is that there's not enough competition in the job market, that we are seeing conditions that should drive stronger wage growth. As you were saying, employers can't find enough workers, yet for whatever reason, they're not raising wages. And it seems to me that that's an indication that there's insufficient competition. I'm curious if that's something that you see with your clients.
I think it's been it's pockets. You know, it's where there's specific jobs and those needs, the wages are higher. You're also seeing wages go higher because of minimum wage increases for some of the frontline positions, leisure and hospitality and other services. But there certainly is competition for certain jobs. The number one issue with small businesses right now, and over 50% are saying they're hiring, their biggest issue is hiring, recruiting, attracting those qualified workers for the right positions that they have right now. And I think it's a little bit tougher sometimes on small business to hire because they don't have as much of the recruiting support, the benefit packages, et cetera, that the large companies do.
Yeah, Marty, a lot of what we talk about is the divergence in wages. So you have a lot of additions in the lower paying jobs, et cetera. That's why it distorts the average hourly earnings. But so I wanted to take a look at the industry performance at 12 months change to see where the small businesses are really adding jobs. And it seems to be things like public administration is the number one, then construction, and then education and health services versus trade and transportation and business services on the lower end. So what do you notice?
Well, you still really see that the largest growth rate is with that leisure and hospitality or other services, kind of discretionary services. That's a good thing in the fact that it is, you know, people are spending a little bit more of discretionary money. We've seen that for some time now. That's a very positive thing, I think, because consumers are spending a little bit more. The bad thing is they are the lower wage rate type positions, although they'll be helped by minimum wage increases, but they are the lower wage type of thing. Also, the hourly earnings going up, you're seeing, you know, where I can't find the workers, small businesses are saying, hey, I'm going to put more hours, work more hours of the folks that I have and try to pick up on productivity.
Marty, one area where we have seen a lot of job growth is in the contracting sector, actually in contracting out payroll services like your work, other independent contract work, the whole labor supply chain. Are you continuing to see growth? Are you seeing that this segment of the economy where companies are outsourcing parts of their roles like personnel or human resources or payroll, is that continuing to grow?
Well, I sure hope so for Paychex's sake. Yeah, we are seeing more of that because HR, human resource in particular, needs are getting much more complex, particularly for small businesses, but all businesses. You know, when you see the federal government reducing regulations, we do see states increasing regulations, changing minimum wages by state, by city sometimes, Paid Family Leave Act. These things are all different by states now. And that makes it more difficult. So companies are outsourcing HR support and help, insurances, those kind of things that are very complicated for them. You're seeing more of that. But in general, contractor services, you know, staffing type services, all kinds of outsourcing is increasing because I think you're seeing a gig economy also, right, impact, which is more people want to work multiple jobs and have more flexibility. So we are seeing more of that because of the kind of the supply side, the gig economy what they're looking for.
Marty, as you look at the question of a limited supply, you said that's your biggest issue right now. How much mobility is there? Are you seeing situations in the marketplace that may restrict people from being able to move on to the next job? Things like non-compete clauses.
You see some of that, but it's more specific jobs. It's going to be more in the professional jobs, which are growing a little bit slower anyway. So we don't see that as much in small businesses and in the trades and so forth. You don't see that holding things up, I don't think, as much. We don't hear that. It's more, there is a mobility issue, though, of just people not necessarily moving as much. We do hear that, where people would move across the country or move different states. We're seeing people a little bit more tied to their areas. It's harder to recruit into areas unless, of course, you're in the South or something that seems to have more of an influx of people and who are looking for work.
And unless you work for Sinclair, right? Then
there's
the whole non-compete thing goes kind of crazy on steroids.
Yeah. With liquidated damages, nonetheless.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Marty, I wanted to get your take on all the issues that we're seeing in D.C., trade wars, et cetera. If you take a look at small business CEO confidence, it's been holding up. What's the trickle down to D.C. and overseas into the optimism?
I think it's going to be very dependent on your business. Small businesses, if they're into manufacturing or they're taking imports as part of their raw materials, they're certainly going to be hurt or be concerned, at least at this point, about what's going on. Many small businesses, though, are more regional and they won't be impacted. It really depends on your business. But there's certainly, when there's uncertainty, I think small businesses more than large are more concerned because they have a lot more at risk, right? They can't go with the flows as much as large businesses are. So we're seeing some concern, but nothing yet unless you're right in one of those niche offerings that is going to be impacted by the tariffs.